Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Golden rays of late summer pierced the Venetian blinds, casting fractured silhouettes across the lived-in kitchen. Ambient light shone on a desolate scene where a solitary soul grappled with rejection once more. The warm breeze floated through the window, dancing with the curtains and the remnants of yesterday's coffee. Solitary fingers, worn from typing, drummed on the table edge, tapping out a sorrowful rhythm. Strewn across the oak grain lay a testament to failure, a stack of rejection letters, each starkly stamped with finality. The weary applicant slouched in the chair, shoulders hunched, their attention fixating on the discarded papers. Why do they ask if not to hire? Bitter murmurs filled the room, the chorus of defeat echoing against the walls. The silent protest went unanswered, save for the distant creak of a floorboard and the front door gently closing. The rattle of keys signaled the arrival of a familiar face. It's rough out there right now. Something will turn up. That's what you said 3 months ago when I got laid off. My savings are almost gone. Jared ran his hands down his face, the stubble rough against his palms. His plain white t-shirt and faded jeans, the unofficial uniform of the perpetually unemployed, were starting to feel like a second skin. Actually, Angela said, brightening, I ran into Rebecca at the grocery store yesterday. You remember her from my book club? The cosmetologist who owns that fancy salon downtown? Jared nodded vaguely, recalling a vibrant woman with immaculate makeup who occasionally joined his mother's friends for wine and literary discussions. She's preparing for some advanced certification and needs models to practice on. Pays cash, under the table. I mentioned you might be available. Mom, Jared groaned. I'm not exactly salon material. Don't be ridiculous. She specifically said she needs different face types. And frankly, honey, it's not like you're swimming in options right now. She took a thoughtful sip of water. Besides, Rebecca pays well, $200 per session. The mention of money changed everything. Jared straightened up, financial desperation overriding his initial hesitation. When does she need someone? The following afternoon, Jared stood outside Transformation's Salon and Spa, a sleek storefront with tinted windows and an elegant script logo. He'd swapped yesterday's t-shirt for a button-down blue shirt and khaki pants, the closest thing to professional attire his wardrobe offered. The bell chimed as he pushed open the door, releasing a wave of floral-scented air. A woman with glossy auburn hair looked up from the reception desk. Can I help you? I'm here to see Rebecca. I'm Angela Peterson's son. Jared, right on time. Rebecca emerged from the back, as polished as he remembered. Today, she wore a black dress with bold, silver jewelry, her makeup flawless, and her movements confident. She ushered him past curious glances from clients under dryers and stylists wielding scissors. We'll use my private studio for this, she explained, leading him to a secluded room in the back. Unlike the main salon's bustling atmosphere, this space felt intimate. A single styling chair faced a wall of mirrors, surrounded by professional lighting and countless drawers of supplies. Angela mentioned you're between jobs, Rebecca said, gesturing for him to sit. This certification I'm working toward focuses on transformation techniques, taking someone from ordinary to extraordinary, complete makeovers, persona creation, that sort of thing. Jared nodded, trying to look comfortable while perched in the unfamiliar territory of a salon chair. Today, I want to try something dramatic. Is that all right with you? Sure, he replied, figuring he had nothing to lose. Do whatever you need to. Rebecca circled him contemplatively. Your bone structure is actually perfect for what I have in mind. Strong jawline, but your eyes, they could be the focal point with the right technique. She reached out, tilting his face this way and that. I'm thinking a smoky eye, nude lip, and we'll style a platinum blonde wig to frame your face. Sound good? Jared shrugged, unfamiliar with the terminology, but willing to go along with it. You're the expert. Rebecca smiled and got to work. First came a layer of something she called primer, then foundation that felt strangely soothing as she blended it across his skin. He closed his eyes as instructed while she worked on his eyelids, the gentle pressure of brushes surprisingly relaxing. You have such long lashes, she commented. Most women would kill for these. Time melted away as Rebecca transformed his face, her fingers deft and sure. The sensation of the makeup brush was oddly comforting, like an artist creating something magnificent. He remained still, eyes closed, lulled into a meditative state by her methodical process. Almost ready for the big reveal, Rebecca said eventually, fitting something onto his head and adjusting it carefully. Just a few finishing touches. The soft scratch of a hairbrush against what must be the wig tickled his scalp. Finally, she stepped back. Open your eyes. Jared's eyelids fluttered open. The person in the mirror wasn't him, couldn't be him. In his place sat someone with luminous skin, dramatic eyes enhanced by long, thick lashes, and cascading platinum blonde waves that softened his features. The transformation was so complete, so utterly convincing, that he could only stare in stunned silence. What do you think? Rebecca asked, watching his reaction in the mirror. Words failed him. The face, looking back, was beautiful in a way he'd never associated with himself. His brown hair completely covered by platinum blonde, his features softened and enhanced until they were unmistakably feminine. I don't recognize myself. Rebecca beamed. That's the point of transformation makeup, to create something entirely new. She ran her fingers through the blonde wig, adjusting it slightly. I've got one more element that would really complete the look. Would you be willing to try on an outfit? Just for photographs. I need documentation for my certification. Jared hesitated, glancing again at the stranger in the mirror. Curiosity tingled through him, a strange desire to see the complete vision Rebecca had created. What kind of outfit? She disappeared into a closet and returned with a red satin cocktail dress, its fabric gleaming under the studio lights. This would be perfect with your coloring. Well, the blonde, I mean. Something inside Jared shifted as he looked at the dress. He reached out, fingers brushing against the cool satin. Okay. Rebecca handed him the dress and directed him to a changing screen in the corner. Behind it, Jared carefully removed his blue shirt and khakis, folding them neatly. The dress slipped over his head like water, the material caressing his skin in a way that sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. When he stepped out, Rebecca's sharp intake of breath told him everything. She guided him back to the mirror, and the full effect hit him like a physical force. The red dress hugged his waist, creating curves where he hadn't known they could exist. Combined with the makeup and platinum blonde wig, the transformation was absolute. Something clicked into place, like finding the last piece of a puzzle he hadn't known he was solving. It's perfect, Rebecca whispered, adjusting the dress's neckline. You look absolutely stunning, Elise. The name slipped out naturally, as if she'd plucked it from his thoughts.
Elise?
He repeated softly. Rebecca smiled. Just came to me. It suits you, don't you think? Looking at his reflection, at Elise's reflection, Jared nodded slowly.
Yeah, it does.
3 weeks later, Jared found himself back in Rebecca's studio for the 5th time. Each session had built upon the last, each transformation more refined, more right. Today, his brown hair had grown out a bit, and Rebecca had suggested they try working with his natural color rather than the platinum blonde wig they'd used in previous sessions. Your natural brown actually complements your skin tone beautifully, Rebecca explained, gently styling his lengthening locks. We can add extensions for fullness until it grows out more.
I've been thinking,
Jared said, watching her work in the mirror. His voice had changed over the weeks, softer now, more measured.
About making this more permanent.
Rebecca's hands stilled momentarily before resuming their work. In what way?
I've been researching about transgender women, about transition.
The words came easier than expected, as if they'd been waiting patiently for his permission to emerge.
Every time I become Elise, it feels like I'm finally being honest.
And every time I wash off the makeup and go back to being Jared, it feels like putting on a costume. Rebecca set down her brush and met his gaze in the mirror. I suspected as much. The way you transform isn't just physical. Your entire demeanor changes. You become more confident, more authentic.
Can you help me?
Jared asked. I don't know where to start. Rebecca smiled warmly. Of course! First, I think we should focus on techniques specifically designed for transgender women. The makeup approach is different, more subtle in some areas, more strategic in others. Over the following months, Rebecca became more than a mentor. She became a guide through uncharted territory. The salon's private studio transformed into a sanctuary where Jared slowly disappeared and Elise emerged fully. Foundation is about creating a clean canvas, Rebecca explained during one session, demonstrating how to neutralize the shadow of facial hair. The trick is building thin layers rather than one thick one. Elise absorbed every lesson eagerly, practicing at home until her fingers developed the same confidence with brushes and sponges that Rebecca possessed. The wardrobe lessons proved equally valuable. Under Rebecca's guidance, Elise discovered which silhouettes flattered her frame. Pencil skirts that created the illusion of hips, silk blouses in jewel tones that drew attention to her increasingly feminine features. Navy blue makes your eyes pop, Rebecca noted, helping Elise into a tailored blazer. And this cut creates a waistline while de-emphasizing your shoulders. 6 months after that first transformation, Elise sat in the now familiar salon chair, dressed in a forest green wrap dress that Rebecca had insisted suited her perfectly. Her brown hair had grown past her shoulders, the extensions blending seamlessly to create a lush mane that framed her face in soft waves. I have an appointment next week, Elise said, watching Rebecca apply the finishing touches to her makeup. With an endocrinologist. Rebecca paused, mascara wand hovering in midair. That's a big step. I'm ready, more than ready. Elise smiled, the expression coming naturally now. I've been living as myself full-time for months. This is just the next logical step. I'm proud of you, Rebecca said, continuing with the mascara application. Not everyone has the courage to embrace their truth. I couldn't have done it without you. Rebecca waved away the gratitude. You were always Elise, I just helped introduce her to the world. She stepped back to assess her work. Perfect. Now, speaking of introductions to the world, I have a proposition for you. The buzzing energy of the salon surrounded Elise as she demonstrated contouring techniques on a client's cheekbones. Her forest green blouse matched her eyes, paired with a sleek black pencil skirt that had become something of a uniform since she'd started working at Transformations 3 months ago. The key is blending, she explained, her voice melodic and confident. You want to create shadows that look natural, not stripes of color. The client, a middle-aged woman preparing for her daughter's wedding, watched with rapt attention. How did you get so good at this? She asked, admiring the emerging definition in her reflection. Elise exchanged a knowing glance with Rebecca, who was working at the next station. Practice, she replied simply. Lots and lots of practice. After the client left with renewed confidence and a bag full of recommended products, Rebecca approached Elise's station. That was beautiful work, she said, straightening a row of brushes on the counter. You have a real gift for this. Learned from the best. Elise smiled, tucking a strand of brown hair behind her ear. The hormone therapy had softened her features further, and combined with her makeup expertise, she now moved through the world without a second glance, just another woman going about her day. I've been meaning to ask, Rebecca said, lowering her voice slightly. How did the meeting with your father go? Elise's smile dimmed a fraction. While her mother had adjusted to her transition with relative ease, her father had maintained a painful distance. Until last week, when he'd finally agreed to dinner.
Better than expected, actually. He's trying. Asked a lot of questions, some awkward. But he called me Elise the whole time. She straightened a bottle of setting spray. He said I look like his aunt when she was young. I think that helped, seeing someone familiar in my face. Rebecca squeezed her shoulder. That's progress. It is. Elise checked her appointment book. I have a new client coming in soon. Someone named Morgan. The booking just says complete transformation consultation. Ah, Rebecca nodded knowingly. I recommended you specifically. Before Elise could ask why, the bell above the door chimed. A figure entered hesitantly. Tall, slightly hunched as if trying to occupy less space, dressed in nondescript jeans and a plain black hoodie. Recognition sparked immediately. The averted eyes, the nervous fingers, the careful way of moving through a space that felt foreign. Elise had carried those same mannerisms once. She approached with a warm smile. Morgan? I'm Elise. Why don't we talk in the private studio? Relief washed over Morgan's face at the suggestion of privacy. Once settled in the familiar room where Elise's own journey had begun, Morgan's shoulders relaxed slightly. Rebecca said you might understand,
Morgan began, voice barely above a whisper.
She said you could help me. See myself. The real me.
Elise nodded, feeling a profound sense of coming full circle. I understand completely. She gestured to the styling chair. Let's introduce you to yourself, shall we? Outside the salon, autumn had painted the city in amber and crimson. Elise pulled her burgundy coat tighter against the chill as she walked home from work, her sensible heels clicking against the pavement. The evening air carried the scent of wood smoke and possibility. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Dinner still on for Saturday? Dad's making his famous lasagna. Elise smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. Family dinners had resumed their regularity, the initial awkwardness gradually replaced by a new normal. Last week, her father had asked for her help selecting a birthday gift for her mother, the first time he'd acknowledged her feminine perspective as valuable. Passing a storefront, Elise caught her reflection in the darkened glass. Brown hair cascaded over the shoulders of her burgundy coat, framing a face that now felt entirely her own. The red satin dress from that first transformation hung in her closet like a talisman, a reminder of the moment everything changed. At her apartment building, the security guard tipped his hat with a friendly, "Evening, Miss Elise," as she entered the lobby. She returned his greeting with a warm smile, collecting her mail before heading upstairs. Her home had evolved alongside her, the stark bachelor furniture gradually replaced with pieces that felt more authentic. Soft throws, framed photographs, plants thriving on the windowsills. A life taking root. As she sorted through her mail, a glossy brochure caught her attention. The certification program Rebecca had been pursuing when they first met, now accepting new applicants. Elise ran her fingers over the embossed lettering, remembering how Rebecca had guided Morgan through that first transformative session yesterday, watching Elise demonstrate the techniques that had once been performed on her, the circle completing itself. Elise set the brochure on her desk, already knowing she would apply. There were others like her, like Morgan, searching for their truth, needing someone who understood the journey from both sides. She moved to her vanity, carefully removing her makeup with practiced motions. Without the enhancing products, her face remained undeniably feminine, the hormones having worked their gradual magic over the past year. The brown-haired woman in the mirror smiled back at her, no longer a stranger but a friend, her authentic self finally visible to the world. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled in the gathering dusk. Elise remembered standing at a different window once, watching the same stars as someone else entirely. The journey from there to here hadn't been straight or simple, but each step had led exactly where she needed to go. Tomorrow would bring new clients, new transformations to guide. Some would be temporary, special occasions, photo shoots, personal exploration. Others might recognize something deeper in their reflection, as she had. Either way, Elise would be there to help them see themselves clearly, perhaps for the very first time. The certification class met every Tuesday evening in a downtown community college classroom. Elise arranged her materials neatly on her desk, textbook, brushes, portfolio, while her classmates filtered in. Most were fellow salon professionals seeking advanced techniques, but Elise's perspective was uniquely valuable. "Before we begin tonight's lesson on color theory," the instructor announced, "I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Elise Peterson is both a practicing makeup artist at Transformation Salon and someone with personal experience in the transformative power of our craft." Elise moved to the front of the room, her forest green dress professional yet approachable. Her brown hair was pinned back on one side with an elegant clip, allowing the full wave of it to cascade over her opposite shoulder. "Thank you for having me," she began, surveying the attentive faces. 3 years ago, I sat in Rebecca Miller's salon chair as a client, someone who had never so much as applied chapstick. Today, I'm going to share how that experience changed not just my appearance, but my entire life. She clicked to the first slide in her presentation, a before and after photo. On the left stood Jared in his blue button-down and khakis, expression uncertain. On the right was Elise in the red satin dress from that first transformation, eyes alive with discovery. "Makeup is often dismissed as superficial," she continued, "but what we do goes beyond cosmetics. We help people see possibilities they never imagined for themselves. Sometimes, those possibilities change everything." From the back of the classroom, a familiar figure slipped in quietly. Rebecca leaned against the wall, arms crossed, pride evident in her smile. She gave Elise an encouraging nod. As Elise continued her presentation, demonstrating techniques specific to facial feminization and discussing the psychological impact of transformation, she noticed one student in particular. Seated in the second row, taking meticulous notes, was Morgan, no longer hunched and hiding, but sitting straight, engaged, and wearing a subtle but skillfully applied face of makeup. When the presentation concluded and the classroom erupted in applause, Elise caught Morgan's eye. The silent exchange held volumes: gratitude, understanding, and the shared experience of becoming. After the class, Rebecca approached, linking her arm through Elise's as they walked toward the parking lot. "Brilliant presentation," she said. "You've come so far from that first day." Elise smiled, memories of that nervous person in the blue shirt and khakis now feeling like scenes from someone else's life. "I never could have imagined ending up here." "I could," Rebecca replied simply. "The moment you looked in that mirror and truly saw yourself, I knew." They paused at Rebecca's car, the autumn evening wrapping around them with gentle coolness. "I have something for you," Rebecca said, reaching into her bag. She withdrew a small velvet box. "A graduation gift, of sorts." Inside lay a silver compact engraved with the words, "To see others clearly, first see yourself." Elise ran her fingers over the engraving, emotion tightening her throat. "It's perfect." "You're going to change lives, Elise. You already have." Rebecca embraced her. The mentor-student relationship now evolved into deep friendship. "Morgan is applying for a position at the salon. Did you know?" "Really? That's wonderful." "The circle continues," Rebecca said with a knowing smile. "Just as it should." Driving home through streets illuminated by the soft glow of street lamps, Elise reflected on the winding path that had led her here. From unemployment and uncertainty to purpose and authenticity. From hiding behind an ill-fitting identity to embracing her truth. At a red light, she caught her reflection in the rear-view mirror. Brown hair, framing a face that had become a perfect expression of her inner self. The light turned green, and Elise drove forward into a future that, for the first time in her life, felt entirely her own. In her closet at home, the red satin dress still hung as a reminder, but it was no longer the only evidence of Elise's existence. Now, her reality was written in every aspect of her life. In her work, helping others find themselves. In the increasingly comfortable family dinners. In the confidence with which she moved through the world. The transformation that had begun in Rebecca's chair had never truly ended. It continued every day in 1,000 small ways, and Elise wouldn't have it any other way.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!